For millions of fast food fans out there, In-N-Out isn't just a place to grab a meal, it is an absolute way of life. Today, we're unpacking how a notoriously stubborn, yet incredibly successful legacy brand navigates aggressive expansion, modern expectations, intense local bureaucracy, and sometimes unexpected real-world tragedies. We're looking at the ultimate clash between a rigid brand identity and the messy realities of the modern world. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at their map-expanding footprint. Second, we're going to examine the uncompromising philosophy of their CEO. Third, we'll break down a highly bureaucratic design clash in Southern California. And finally, we will cover a somber, serious, real-world tragedy in Idaho, which we will of course report on with the utmost respect. Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, expanding the footprint, growing the map. We all know In-N-Out is famous for its never-frozen ingredients and its intense customer loyalty, which has mostly been concentrated in the American West. But lately, they've been pushing those boundaries. The company recently unveiled plans for 6 new locations across 5 different states. They're filling in their home state of California with spots in Commerce and Stockton, and they're expanding in Arizona at Santan Valley and Utah at St. George. But the really big news here? They are pushing eastward, crossing state lines all the way into Tennessee with a new location in Madison, alongside a major double play in Idaho. Let's zoom in on their move into Twin Falls, Idaho. This location just opened its doors on July 24th, and to staff it up, they brought on nearly 90 people. To make sure that happened, they offered a highly competitive starting wage of $17.50 an hour. This really illustrates that while their expansion is aggressive, it's also highly measured. They want to ensure they can attract the workforce necessary to maintain their famously high customer service standards, even in entirely new markets. Moving right along to Section 2, the uncompromising brand, refusing the East Coast and apps. This uncompromising stance comes straight from the top. Speaking recently at a forum at Pepperdine University, CEO Lynsi Snyder, the granddaughter of the original founders, made it crystal clear that the East Coast is officially off the table. She bluntly stated, "I don't see us being on the East Coast in my lifetime," and added, "We won't compromise on quality just to expand." Why? Well, it all boils down to distribution. The brand absolutely refuses to freeze their beef, their produce, or their dairy. The East Coast is simply too far from their current distribution centers to maintain that strict, fresh, never-frozen standard. And, this rigid philosophy doesn't just stop at geography. It extends to technology, too. Snyder definitively shut down the idea of mobile app ordering. While basically every other fast food competitor is leaning heavily into digital apps and pickup lanes, In-N-Out says no. Snyder argues that apps strip away the essential human connection. For her, the core of the experience is that human interaction, the smile, the greeting, the warmth of the service. On top of that, she noted that mobile ordering could actually compromise the fresh quality of the food if it's just sitting in a bag waiting for pickup. It is a bold move against the grain to protect a legacy. All right, that brings us to Section 3, Palm Springs Design Clash, Bureaucratic Purgatory. Usually, the stubborn refusal to adapt to modern trends is celebrated by the brand's loyalists. But In-N-Out's strict attachment to its standard architectural aesthetic is currently causing a massive roadblock down in Southern California. A proposed location at 1801 East Palm Canyon Drive in Palm Springs has been stuck in design review purgatory for years. In fact, its opening has now been pushed all the way back to late 2027 or maybe even early 2028. So what exactly is causing this massive holdup? The primary issue here is a profound clash of aesthetics. Palm Springs is world famous for its distinct mid-century modern architectural vibe. You know the look, it's characterized by clean lines, glass walls, and a really seamless connection to the desert landscape. The city and its residents fiercely protect this aesthetic. The problem is that the standard In-N-Out building design heavily clashes with this requirement. Basically, the brand wants to look like an In-N-Out, and Palm Springs wants it to look like Palm Springs. This whole situation brilliantly illustrates just how intense local bureaucracy can get. In-N-Out actually tried to compromise. They submitted multiple revisions to the exterior colors and the landscaping to try and fit in, but it wasn't enough. One highly frustrated planning commissioner actually dismissed the corporate updates as just putting lipstick on a pig. Because of this impasse, the project has been forced into a staggering 6th design review before it can even get final architectural approval. So yeah, the wait for a double-double in Palm Springs is gonna be a long one. Now, this brings us to our 4th and final section, Tragedy in Twin Falls, a somber reality. We now need to completely shift our tone here to impartially report on a devastating and tragic real-world event. That very same Twin Falls location on Blue Lakes Boulevard in Idaho that we discussed earlier, the one that just opened with such promise in late July, became the site of a horrific shooting. This occurred on a Saturday afternoon, right around 2:30 p.m. local time, instantly turning a bustling, brand-new restaurant into a sudden crime scene. Police rapidly responded to the restaurant. According to the reports we have, the incident resulted in at least 3 tragic deaths, along with multiple injuries, and the suspected shooter was also found dead at the scene. It is a stark, devastating reality that completely overshadows the typical business narrative of a restaurant expansion. To put this into perspective, Twin Falls is a relatively small city with a population of about 56,000 people. For a tight-knit community of this size, an event like this is just a heartbreaking tragedy. The community is deeply shaken as the police investigation continues to unfold. And as an explainer of this developing story, we note that our thoughts are certainly with them as they navigate this incredibly difficult time. All of this really leaves us with a final provocative question. How can heritage brands survive the sheer complexities of the modern world while staying true to their foundational roots? As we've seen today, when legacy companies like In-N-Out expand their footprint, they inevitably collide with a myriad of external forces. They face the intense demands of modern technology, the fierce pushback of local bureaucracies in places like Palm Springs, and sometimes the stark, unpredictable, and heartbreaking realities of the real world. All of these factors combined continually test the absolute limits of what it means to be an uncompromising brand in today's landscape. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer.